So, good afternoon everybody. We're here with Rockfiend Publications Scotland. This afternoon we're in Glasgow and we're at the Venue Audio and we're here with Mike Tramp. How are we doing, sir?
How's it going? You said that we're going to be an interpreter.
All right, okay. You shouldn't need it though.
Nice to be here.
Very good.
Thanks for your support.
No problem, as always, man. As always.
Yeah.
So you're here with your new album?
Yes.
Straight from the Flock?
Yes.
And you've got like 2 dates left, so you've got tonight and then you're playing Bannerman's tomorrow night in Edinburgh. Yeah. How's the tour gone so far?
I mean, it is great. I mean, over the last 10 years, I've seen corners of the world with the acoustic guitar as my side guide, and every album I played Glasgow.
Yeah.
And so it's something that's almost more part of my life than looking at it as the way we did it in the old days. I get a lot out of talking to the fans after the show. I get a lot from driving the car and seeing the country and things like that. I come home completely like loaded with knowledge of things that I've seen with my eyes and things that I've heard.
So it must be quite a different experience from doing it with the band and everything.
It is completely different. There are a lot of people that wouldn't be able to handle it. It requires a lot of preparation. It sounds like a simple thing, but just coming into a city and finding parking.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it is the true challenge of where you are as a man, just as it is a true challenge of the strength of the song and the artist playing for small crowds. Mm-hmm. There was another rock and roller that once said that when you bring 10,000 and more people together, the IQ drops to 6 years old, then you basically can get them to do anything. Once you play for 20 people, which I do at times, now it's you and them, and you're almost one-on-one with them. So now it really comes down to, like I say, the strength of the song and the performance of the artist. You can't hide behind, fire and smoke and changing lights.
Because I mean, like traditionally we'd have seen you, obviously back in the 80s, we would see you with White Line, so we saw you with the big band, and it's quite a different transition to seeing the audio show. Like the acoustic thing's just an entirely different concept.
Yeah,
but I think it works really well because you've got new people coming along, but you've also got the old fans that really appreciate hearing the songs in a stripped back way.
It's basically close to 30 years since White Line played Barrowlands. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of years.
We were just speaking about that earlier.
That's a lot of years. I mean, sometimes in the past we used to talk about, we'll be back next year and something like that. Now, whenever you talk about something from the past, you drop 30 years just like that. I mean, it's not like, the thing happened last year. So it's a lot to digest that you have been through that much, and sometimes you ask yourself the questions about if this was real or if it's just a dream.
Mm-hmm. So I believe the Barrowlands show you did with Taiketo, is that right?
That's correct, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the Barrowlands is obviously so famous for so many bands as well. It must have been incredible, wasn't it?
It is nice to have been playing venues around the world that are part of rock and roll's legacy.
Yeah.
Like when we played the original Marquee right before it closed down with White Line, the beginning of everything, and haven't played those things. And then sometimes when I read a rock biography and the names come up, then I go, I was there. Mm-hmm. So I think that if you forget that it's all about platinum records and big videos and being in the magazines and just change to say you lived a life.
Mm-hmm. It's all that.
It is, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So you recently toured the United States. I was following some of the stories as you were going from place to place. By the looks of it, it was a little bit of a challenge.
Everything is a challenge when, the easiest thing is the 2 hours on stage.
Yeah.
The challenge is getting there.
Yeah.
And when you deal with weather and when you deal with that big of a country, and in many situations, I do 5 to 6 to 7 hours of drive every day. I mean, it just burns you out.
Yeah.
But it is the way it is, and sometimes you can't get a show in between, so you have to do it. Mm-hmm. And I find myself sometimes doing my own form of meditation, looking into the mirror, and then say, well, would you rather work construction?
Yeah. And that's an easy yes every time.
Well, it's just one of those things, you know.
This is the right career to be in.
This is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a career. Mm-hmm. It's a lifestyle, because you continue regardless of where you are on the charts. There's almost no charts existing anymore. That was something you looked at in the old days, but now it's just like you're just part of it. It's like harvesting. It's like shearing the sheep. It's something that happens once a year. To me, it's almost like I write a batch of songs once a year almost, and it's almost getting rid of it in a positive way of something that is built up and things you absorb. There might be references to the past and things like that, but a lot of my albums have something to do with where I am at that moment. Right. It's also one of the reasons why on the last 4 albums I've had a motorcycle accompanying me on the cover. It's an ongoing journey.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going to end up, but it's an ongoing journey. It's a challenge. It's a quest. It's an adventure, etc., etc.
Yeah. I mean, like, obviously the new album's just out, and this is the 11th one, I believe.
Yes.
Is there anything on there that you're particularly proud of? Is there something that you would...
I'm proud of everything. You know, when I recorded my first solo album in '96, I made the decision that the lyrics, me, and myself would represent my Tramp. And I've been very open about my life, even my personal life, my family, etc., because it's who I am and it's how I deal best with it. If I had to kind of, hide behind something, it would be difficult for me to get through the day.
Yeah.
So, in a way, I share my life with the people that follow my music. And it's a great reward when you hear someone say, hey, that song is about my life.
Yeah.
Then you know you have reached real stuff and things like that. So the thing that I'm probably most proud of it is how consistent I have been. And that's a lot to do with based upon the earlier years, even prior to White Lion, where there was so much, in reality, straying away from the path.
Yeah.
Following trends, not being true to yourself, which is later on these very strong title comes like Stand Your Ground, More to Life Than This, Recovering the Wasted Years, Nomad, Maybe Tomorrow. They're all about a life I have lived, the mistakes I made, and things I've done, correcting them, finding yourself, and most of all, finding who you are and where you belong.
Mm-hmm. So, we're so far down the tour at the moment. Have you run out of flapjack yet?
Yeah. I don't know what happened on this tour, but somehow I think Marks and Spencer's food hall got hold of it, because it haven't happened from the last week. Maybe it was the Easter Bunny.
And another question for you. Does gin turn you into a Hollywood film star?
Come again?
Sylvester Stallone?
Yeah. I mean, you know what? It's like there's never a dull day.
No.
There's never a dull day. And I talk about it sometimes on stage, is that when you surrender yourself to the autopilot,
Yeah.
and sort of just think that everything is just going to be the same. You turn around the corner and you find out it's not.
For sure.
That is probably the thing that keeps you alive.
Yeah.
Because the autopilot of routine is dangerous. First of all, it bores you.
Yeah.
So you have to find ways of breaking free from that.
I think what you find, like, you know, when you've been watching the video vlogs and that, obviously you found something a little bit unique in every place that you've been
and
to.
you have to make both fun of the situation
Yeah.
and also to make fun of yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it would simply be impossible to wake up every day and make all these demands, because none of them will come true.
No.
Therefore, my motto at the beginning of the days, surprise me.
Yeah. It certainly does.
I usually don't even get to start the car before I'm surprised.
How did the gin tasting go then?
The gin tasting was a wonderful experience.
Looked like it could have been a bit messy.
It could have been very dangerous.
Yeah.
Good thing I'm a disciplined man.
Right.
But isn't it lovely that someone chose to offer me the opportunity,
Yeah.
and give me a little bit of a lesson of where the different things come from.
I think they were just.
You only saw the short version of it, but yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, you know, I mean, when I come home from a tour, not just do I come home with a lot of stuff that I've accumulated in the car, I also come home with a massive amount of newfound friends. And that is the true test in life, when you can add friends to your list. A lot of people are losing friends. I'm gaining them. And I'm not talking about Facebook, I'm talking about real friends, handshakes.
Yeah.
People that in most cases will be there next time because they got something out of the meeting or whatever you call it, the talk, sharing different things.
I think the fact that you're so open as well with your fans, you know, you're very approachable.
Yeah, I mean,
Very open.
you know, I think it's something that I first of all, it's who I am.
Yeah.
But a lot of that stuff wasn't possible in the old days. Not necessarily because there were a lot of fans, but just somehow because the whole machine was walking from the arena to the bus, having the bus drive, you know, through the night, waking up at a new arena, going in there, hanging out, getting ready, do the show, get back on the bus, moving on, sort of living in a surrealistic world, and you know, and now, once I decided years ago that I was going to go out and tour the world with the acoustic guitar, I knew I would have to get through the front door to the stage, and through the front door are the audience, and I knew I would have to go out through the front door and through the audience again. So when you embrace that, there's a certain amount of calm and a certain amount of respect that we're all the same.
Yeah, because it's already broken down the barrier.
Exactly.
Yeah?
Exactly. It would simply be impossible to do it any other way. I do know some people that try and they'll fail on it.
Yeah. And much better to set yourself in that situation.
It's just reality.
Yeah.
It just is.
So I mean, going back to your White Lion days, obviously you were talking about that point in time where you would travel from city to city and virtually probably see not a great deal of the towns and places.
Yeah.
Now you've got a whole different opportunity to connect with people.
Yeah.
But like back to the White Lion days, first you do albums that more or less defined a whole genre, if you like.
Yeah.
You know, they brought together everything that was great about the 80s and just threw it onto vinyl basically, which is what we were buying at that point in time.
Yeah, of course.
From the mid to the late 80s, all those albums came out. Was there any particular point in time that you were really very fond of?
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought that that this would happen?
Yes.
I was talking to somebody else about it, that in 19, just as a crazy example, is 1976,
Yeah.
which of course is is 10 years prior to sort of the time, somebody came visit the house I was living in with the band and brought High Voltage, AC/DC. 12 years later, I toured with them for 3 months. Who would have thought that? And it's things like that. I remember in 1985 when I was painting apartments in New York for a living while we were building White Lion. And actually I was listening to a lot of the bands from the 80s. This was prior to White Lion really breaking, which basically was 87. And it's it's a both good or bad situation. I actually enjoyed all the bands I was listening to at that time. I was in many ways still a fan. The second White Lion became a bit of a competitor.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy it anymore. Right. Now all the other bands and stuff like that became sort of like a competition. And that was the enjoyment of listening to those bands. Yeah. And it's actually a shame, but it's just a fact that it happened.
Right.
And now I look at the 80s as a vacation. It's something that happened and something that ended.
Yeah.
And it ended really hard. There wasn't a grace period.
No.
It wasn't like somebody coming back from space or a diver coming up from the bottom of the ocean or whatever. I said, we're going to have to do it gradually. No, it was a door slapped in your face. Almost, that's how it felt. You might tell me it took a year or something like that, but at the end of the 80s, it was almost, I sometimes tell a little bit of like a fictional story about, how I one day just walk out on Hollywood Boulevard and suddenly everything is just flannel shirts and Starbucks coffee and the Jack Daniels and the leather pants and the long hair is gone. Hence the 80s, hence, the second wave of, when grunge came in and in real words, alternative. Because I think that it's fair to say that the 80s burned the 80s out at the end. When you go back to the last couple albums that are released by new bands, I don't even know the names, there are a true copy of the other copies of the original ones. It's simply just what it is, and I just think that you couldn't handle more of it. Yeah. I mean, when Motley Crue came out with especially Shout of the Devil, you can say it was original.
Yeah.
You can refer to as, that's a little bit of Kiss or a little bit of New York Dolls. It's something to do. There's no band like that coming out at that time. And the same thing with Van Halen and also the sound of Def Leppard on Hysteria, of Pyromania. It was the first step of something. But once, and I'm going to say we, started copying some of that, it started taking away from the originality.
Right. It's basically a blueprint for the whole thing.
It is a template, exactly. Yeah. You take one with blonde hair and three with black hair, you have an 80s band. You add white or black to it, you find an animal and put it together and you have the name.
Yeah.
That's looking back. It's not how it felt when we were in the middle of it. And it was this like bullet train, 300 miles an hour. Once you got on, you had no time to think. You had to make a quick decision what you were going to do. And it was very tough to be Kurt Cobain in 1988 and go against the grain. Why would you want to do that when you had just tasted the success? But the fact of the matter is that we ended up basically killing ourselves. And I don't think really it's a matter of if you could have gone away. It was just bound to happen.
Did you feel at that point in time that there was any more mileage in what you were doing? When Main Attraction came out and you toured it, obviously things wound up, didn't they? But it's so tough to make the decision when you're right in the middle, because you are in the moment and you can't really feel the surroundings. Things
things were changing when we did Main Attraction, but things were also changing in the band.
And you could hear that as well in some of the
Yeah.
material on that
Yeah.
album.
I mean,
it started to get a heavier edge to it as well.
But I also started sounding different as a singer.
Yeah.
It's almost that when I started out in early '83 with White Line, and we wrote Broken Heart and the Fight to Survive album.
Yeah.
And then basically 7 years later, when Vito and I are writing Main Attraction, it's really not the same singer and songwriter. I have toured with the greatest rock bands in the world. I've seen so much. I tasted both success and regrets. I'm not going to call it failure, but regrets of doing something. A small episode could basically be after touring two years on the Pride album, when we were almost forced to write the Big Game album with a gun to our head, and not given a vacation. Doesn't have to be on a sunny island or stuff like that, but just a mental vacation, getting the clothes off, letting the hair just take a break, and for your thoughts to come back to default, back to feet on the ground, back to something like that. We never got that. Vito and I went straight from the last show into a hotel out in the nowhere and started writing the Big Game album. My hair was still up here with the hair straight, and my voice hadn't recovered or anything from just singing these high songs every night. And here we are. Now we have to come up with songs to a multi-platinum world successful rock record. It's just completely wrong.
And the pressure must have been intense, was it?
Yeah, it was more mentally pressure and things like that. And here you go. The people that make money off you, the record company, your managers, your publicists, your publishing, your T-shirt vendors, everything like that, they're not guiding you. They're basically steering you in the wrong direction. Because if you really had been a smart manager, a smart record company says, this band not just needs at least half a year break.
Yeah.
The industry needs a break from them. When we released the Big Game album, Pride is still in the charge.
Yeah.
It just felt like I hadn't unpacked.
Not good.
No, it's not good at all.
So obviously you went off the back of that. You came and you formed Freak of Nature.
Yeah, well, after the Main Attraction album, and it's almost there. I have kind of like mustered up some confidence in taking some stands, and there's a good amount of money in the bank, and you feel sort of strong. You make a decision, you can back it up.
Yeah.
And it just came to that decision that I in reality, I wish, and I talked to Vito about it, many times, that maybe, again, we would have taken a break and then met and discussed things. But usually, I'm a guy who just swings the axe and think later. And I just said to him, we were doing a little tour of America with the new rhythm section, and the tour was coming to the last two shows, just like we're kind of sitting here.
Yeah.
And I just said to him, when we play the day after tomorrow, it'll be the final show of the band. And he basically went to me and said, okay. None of us were fighting it. And
I still find that unbelievable.
I find
when you hear that quote.
The thing that I find most unbelievable is that the record company, the managers, and all the people that stood in line to collect money from us didn't pick up the phone and says, "What are you guys out of your mind?" or something like that. Nobody fought for it. Nobody, So it was just almost like, okay. So in reality, is this what we mean to other people? Is this so? Vito and I have had, at times, many conversations about it, and I know he basically felt sort of bitter about it. He just didn't fight it.
Yeah.
I was a different person. I hit the ground running with instantly a new band.
Yeah.
Because that's just the way it is. And I think a lot of it had to do with that I felt that I wanted to build something that was going to have, the right foundation from the start. The right ingredients. Of course, I also come in with 7-8 years of knowledge, good or bad, that I have all the things that I don't want to repeat. And which is why during the short-lived time of Freak of Nature, it was the ultimate perfect band in every which way.
It was kind of a darker and a heavier experience.
Yeah. One thing is the music, but more with the brotherhood of that. This was 5 fingers forming a fist.
Yeah.
And everybody knew that if one of the fingers let go, it would not be a very powerful fist. It's also why when the band ends, it's when I feel that 2 of the fingers are kind of like coming loose from the fist. And I said, the memories are too strong for me.
Yeah.
I want to keep them as the best days of my life. So we closed the band as brothers.
Yeah.
And left it almost as the perfect adventure where all came home in one piece.
It's like the best TV shows that you watch.
Yeah.
Not the ones that keep on stringing it out, the ones that just leave it.
It's one of those who says, why isn't there a 3rd season? Because if there was a 3rd season,
you'd get too many people complaining.
Exactly.
Yeah. So going back again to the 80s, have you seen The Dirt yet? The film?
I have not seen The Dirt and stuff like that. I have lived the dirt.
Yeah, I was going to say you've got to have some pretty interesting
and you know what? I find it so interesting that, everything today is about building a wall and knocking it down.
Yeah.
There's no room for just letting something be. Everybody's got a goddamn comment on everything like that.
Yeah.
Watch it if you want to watch it.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. But don't spend all this time. I see other rock and rollers out there fighting the truth. Or, oh, that's not true in the movie. That's not. I was there in this. I don't know.
You obviously toured with the crew, didn't you?
Yeah.
So did you have a good experience on that tour?
I have had nothing but good things to say about the times that I have been in the presence of Motley Crue, and almost, even if I hadn't, I kind of keep it to myself.
Yeah.
We all were kind of like a kindergarten, just left to our own, to just tear up the classroom.
Yeah.
We were lucky. We were lucky. The things we saw, the things we tasted and tried, the money we made. I mean, we were getting paid for living a crazy party. And I was, I am one of the more mild ones. But you know what? You were part of a decade of decadence. Yeah. It's as simple as that. And
so was there anybody in the band at that point that was really into that then, rather than sort of...
No, I mean, White Line represents, I mean, I think you can hear in the music, and even though Vito and I have been the main songwriters, I think we chose to represent what we were as a band. We were not that kind of band.
Yeah.
We had a different message. To a lot of people, when you look at a picture with a blonde head lead singer and 3 guys, everything looks the same.
Yeah.
When you play the record, you know that it's not the same. You know that most bands have their own individual little,
Yeah. And like that was most certainly true of White Lion, because they were very much individual, even though you had so much going on.
Exactly. I mean, it's not for me to take up the debate, but there was lifetimes between Poison and White Lion.
Oh yeah.
And things like that. And like when you sit in a restaurant and you look at the menu, you pick what you want to eat. Yeah. And that's what it's all about. It's not a competition.
And White Lion is still big out in Indonesia, right?
Well, White Line has left a lot of footsteps to a lot of different people, and a lot of the lyrics that I wrote, which are quite different from some of the other bands, have had an impact on people's life, and you know, that's sort of nice to know, especially when you come around and when I walked out of the place I played last night, you know, I heard this voice from the corner, and there's a guy sitting there, and he says, "Man, I've been waiting for this for 30 years." And I says, "Wow, my songs meant so much that for 30 years, this guy waited for this opportunity."
So you made his day.
Yeah, you know, exactly. That is special.
You mentioned in Newcastle that your children were kind of becoming a bit interested in the lyrics from the old songs.
Yeah, you know, I mean, this is just one of those things. I mean, you know, I mean, it's like, who would have thought? Who would have thought that in 1985, you know, even me sitting there writing a song called "When the Children Cry," when most of the world were at peace.
Yeah.
There were no bombings, there was no school shootings, there was no, all this kind of stuff, you know. And now, in 2019, the song is more current
than
ever. And at the same time, you know, writing, you know, silly, you know, sexual, you know, songs, you know, or songs with reference to sexuality and stuff like that, and your kids picking up on things like that and stuff like that, you know, it's just a sign of the times.
And are they taking steps much like yourself? Are they going into music?
My kids, both of my young ones, I have 3 children, both of my young ones are heavy into music. It's not because of me, it's just because they were chosen. I also know that they don't listen to anything I tell them, and that's also a sign of the times. That they're in a whole different, you know, space of you know. I was still part of maybe the last phase of rock and roll's development. Now everything is just about cutting and paste. There's nothing to do with originality. It's just a matter of you know, taking the same idea and just twist and turning it, you know, and doing something else.
So back at home in Denmark, you've got a farm, I believe. Does that take up a lot of time when you're back at home?
It does take up a time, but most of all, it clears me from being bored of doing the same thing on tour every night. It's very important to have balance. Very important to balance. It's very important to once in a while play songs that you haven't played the night before, just to break the rhythm. Because I find myself many nights on stage being in a dangerous zone where I'm you know, regardless of how many smiles I get back from the audience, I find myself being bored. It's a different kind of boredom, so I have to break free from that at times.
So it helps to have a little bit of spontaneity.
Yeah, it is, and at the same time, it's also because I've written a lot of songs, and I don't know all my songs just at the spirit of the moment. It's just impossible. It's just impossible. So some of them have to be refreshed, but you have to do it. Have to do it.
I mean, we know about your influences from back in the 70s, but do you hear music now that influences you in any different way?
Not at all.
Really?
Not at all.
No.
I have not heard anything new in a very, very long time. You know, we might as well get out. It would be very tough for me to say and you know, to put everything on the table that at 58 that I would be inspired by Greta Van Fleet.
Right.
That is impossible for me to tell you. You know, this is just repeating something that I grew up with. And it's great for those people that find bands like that.
I suppose for the generation that are just discovering
interesting.
it.
It's just the way it is. I was lucky enough to have seen Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to have grown up and seen a lot of my heroes.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I saw the last chapter of originality.
Yeah.
And then after that, everything just became a bit of a copy. And I'm not going to deny that I am children of my heroes. I'm a torchbearer of what I've seen. At the same time, I sort of try to keep certain values along with because in reality, everything has been done.
Yeah.
Everything has been done. You can then choose to where you want to leave your personality and or what you can add to something that because the stage and the pavement that I walk on is my heroes. Mm-hmm. It's just the way it is. If from Bob Dylan to Thin Lizzy to Queen to Springsteen to whatever, that's my album collection.
Yeah.
When I sit and play A minor to G to D to C, I play Knocking on Heaven's Door, which was basically the first song I learned in 1972, 73.
Yeah.
And there are the same chords I basically play in the 20 songs that I play every night. It's just a different melody. Mm-hmm. I now try to take the audience on a little bit of a different lyrical journey. And do not go in and copy or repeat the same story that Dylan or Tom Petty or Springsteen did. Everybody has their own little personal story,
Yeah.
And that's sort of maybe where we take our stand, and you become that original artist.
Yeah.
But at the bottom of it all, we all come from the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how close you get to the original guitar riff.
Right. Okay.
It's just the way it is.
Uh-huh. I mean, at 58 now, do you feel that there's anything else that you'd like to achieve in terms of your musical career?
I actually feel like I have reached the max as a rock and roll artist. I cannot invent anything more. I feel with the last album that I released, Straight from the Flock, that I've reached the max. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's almost like going back into the womb. Mm-hmm. and just sort of making it more simplified. I'm not going to sit and say that this sort of will be my last band album. The question is just what I want to do.
Yeah.
If I was part of a project, I would want to step into the project. I wouldn't want to start the project, because the second I'm the starter of anything, it becomes my Tramp thing.
Okay.
So I would have to have the musician or the band be the first step, and I'm the layer on top. Because the second I take over, I will turn it into
Then it becomes yours.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
So, and I already have, like we said, we started like half an hour ago talking about 11 albums.
Yeah.
The opening track on the new album is 9 minutes long. I basically cover 5 of my heroes in that band, in that song. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like, where can I go from there? My love of rock and roll is pretty simple of sort of within the boundaries of where I want to go. So it's almost like a dilemma. At the same time, I wouldn't mind going out and doing a tour where I was just singing together with a piano player. Mm-hmm. And just singing the songs for the love of it.
Yeah.
Not to do anything new, but just to say, that's what I'm going to do on this tour, and to meet my friends. Mm-hmm. An evening of this.
I'm sure it will go down really well.
But it's in a simple matter. It's just the way it is. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time
It's
today. Mike.
it's my pleasure.
The tour continues. You've got tomorrow night again down at Bannerman's in Edinburgh.
The
And
tour
then-
continues for the rest of the
Yeah,
year
you're
in
back
many
over in
ways.
Europe, yeah.
In many ways, you know, all the tour dates are not printed on a T-shirt, but you know, at the end of the day, I am a singer-songwriter. I am an artist, and this is my life.
Thank you very much for
Hey,
your time.
no, it's my pleasure.
Much appreciated.
You got it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
See you again soon. Cheers.